Okay, so let's get started. So this is one of a series of what we call league conversations, and we're trying to bring people that you can talk to who are doing important things in our community. This is going to be very interesting today, I'm sure. Our facilitator for this meeting is Rhonda Kurtz, and Rhonda recently retired from the University of Illinois, where she worked in the Office of Dean of Students, much experience with student organizations and that have organized protests or events that resulted in protests. I'm sure that's some interesting stories there. And she's excited to work with the League as she feels she's returning to work as she valued as a student, registering individuals to vote. As a student, Rhonda had registered more than 5,000 students, so that's really great. So Rhonda, why don't you take it over from here?
So thanks very much, Tricia and the programming committee for selecting a conversation with the individuals that we're talking with today, young activists in the community who've responded to all the Black Lives Matters protests and other protests that have just been occurring here this spring. And so what I'd like to do is take some time to introduce our individuals who are with us today. And so I'd like to start with Naomi. So Naomi, if you could say hello so that kind of brings you up on the screen so folks can see you. Can you say hello, Naomi? Can Naomi hear me? I'm not seeing Naomi.
But let me look. She is listed as being, no, she should be unmuted.
Are you there, Naomi? So that folks can. Well, let me go on then to introduce Naomi, and then hopefully she'll be able to talk and get question points. So
ask if she can hear us.
Naomi, can you hear us? She says she can hear us, so that's wonderful. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce her, and then hopefully she'll be able to respond when we get to the question part. So Naomi Dupree, along with 4 other individuals, founded the Pain to Peace organization. Pain to Peace is a diverse group of youth who are committed to making change in our community. As an organization, Pain to Peace strives to call out inequality in our community and lift the voices of those who face social injustice and discrimination daily. Naomi led the first protest of the organization on June 6th, which was very successful and has led to other protests and events in the community. Pain to Peace has also designed a website which lists educational resources and ways for community members to get involved. Naomi is a recent graduate of Central High School and will be attending Parkland College. And then our other panelist today is Jon Arteaga. So Jon, if you want to say hello, let's make sure.
Hello.
Hello, great, thanks, Jon. Jon Arteaga had returned home to St. Joseph after graduating from Illinois State University with a degree in English earlier this year. Jon attended a Black Lives Matter protest on June 1st in Urbana. He was deeply impacted by this event and wanted those underrepresented residents living in St. Joseph to know that they had allies in their community. On June 3rd, Jon went to the 4-way stop in St. Joseph with a sign of support, and 4 other community members joined him. When he returned home, he found an outpouring of support on his social media and organized the peaceful protest for equality in St. Joseph 2 days later on June 5th. Jon has since become active in community organizations working to expand social justice outreach in rural communities. So thank you both for being here, Naomi, Jon. I've sent you the questions in advance, so this is a really friendly conversation. And then as we take questions from the league members, if you need a moment to think about that and we can come back to you, that would be great. So Naomi, I'm hoping that you are able to respond because we
Rhonda, just a second.
Yeah.
Rhonda, she just left. She said she'll come back.
Yeah. Okay, so Jon will go to you. Okay, so and then thank you, Carol, because I'm having trouble kind of seeing all of that. So I appreciate that. Jon, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your motivation for the protests that you held?
Yeah, so the whole reason that I wanted to do my protest was just the fact, like, it was kind of like a culture shock. You know, you go to college where you're in an academia setting where everybody's wanting to learn about everyone and it's very open-minded, and then it shifts from that to oh, hey, we can hear Naomi now.
Hi, I got on my phone. Sorry, guys. I'm going to mute myself now.
Okay, cool.
Okay, cool.
So going from like a very open-minded academia setting to a very small town where it's generally a little bit more closed-minded. Not everybody, of course, but you know, doing that, it was kind of like this little motivator. I was like, this isn't sitting well with me. This isn't okay. So I was just kind of like, I need to do something, you know, and in the midst of COVID, I'm unemployed, and I don't want to just be sitting around doing nothing when I could be doing something. So with this most recent, you know, movement spurred by the very unfortunate death of George Floyd, it kind of spurred me to action after attending the protest in Urbana. But I guess, you know, the whole reason that I just did the first one was just to show community members, hey, you have allies, we're here, we have your back. Because you know, I'm gay, so I grew up in this town and it didn't feel like I had any allies. It really didn't. So because people weren't openly, you know, saying that. Yes, there were people that were accepting of me and, you know, this, that, and the other, but it felt very isolating and very lonely. So I just didn't want people to feel that way in my community. So I just wanted to like put myself out there and say, hey, like, I'm here. So yeah, that was kind of the whole reason I did it.
Sorry, Naomi, we'd like to hear from you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to found Pain Peace. Okay.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm born and raised in Champaign. I'm actually third generation at Southside, Edison, and Central. My grandma was first graduating class at Centennial, and my grandpa went to Central and all that stuff. So been here for a long time and got told a lot of stories about different time frames and stuff. Like, I'm sure my grandparents were at Central. There were like the race riots going on, and my dad was at Central. He was the only white kid allowed across University Avenue. So for me, when I got to Central, it was kind of like what to expect. What are we going to expect? I was obviously very aware of that racism was still alive and that it was definitely not gone. And it was hard for me to kind of process that because for me, I played soccer here my whole life. I was around a lot of the white community, I guess you could say. So I don't want to say like I was unaware, but it definitely, like John had said, a culture shock for me around the Trayvon Martin era, because I do have younger brothers and sisters who are Black that live in Garden Hills. And so it was like, it affected me personally at that moment in time. So around my junior year of high school, I kind of wanted to do something about it when the Trump thing was happening with the kids on the border and the Black Little Mermaid thing had come out. I wanted to hear what the community's opinions were about it and kind of give people a place where they could talk about politics in like a safe space, to where it wasn't like, I'm a kid and I don't want to talk about this, but there's other kids talking about it and I want to talk about it too. So I kind of got a bunch of girls from different areas and we tried to take it off, but we didn't have a meeting place. We didn't have any resources or allies. And that was also at a time where it wasn't as prevalent. We were kind of still on like a balance beam of, is it okay to talk about it? Is that not okay to talk about it? And like John had said, with the unfortunate passing of George Floyd, I feel like it was just a catalyst for everyone to be like, okay, wake up. And I'd gone to a few protests in town, and I'd met one of my mentors and one of our allies, Justin Hendricks. I don't know why I keep saying John. Justin Hendricks, who he has Hit and Homeboy, which is an organization for queer youth here in Champaign. And he's been our backbone this whole time. He reached out to me one night after a protest and said, hey, do you have a team? I said, I can make one. And I reached out to like 5 girls that night who had been super passionate about what I was doing and asking me questions constantly. We came up with a plan that night, met the next day, came out with the route that day, and then 2 days later had the protest. So it's been a beautiful transition from my junior year of high school, from being like, okay, will this work? Will it not work? And being like a lot of closed doors, to now it's just flourishing and everybody wanting to hear what we have to say, and us just trying to get the youth voice and stories out there, because it's being silenced the more and more we go farther into the dark hole of bigotry and prejudice. So I feel the more we talk about it and have these conversations, the easier it'll get. So I'm just glad to be here. Yeah.
Yep, no, that's great. So I'll stick with you, Naomi. Can you tell us a little bit about how you went about organizing your protests on June 6th?
Yeah, so for that protest, like I said, Justin Hendricks was a big help for us in what we were doing, and he has been involved a lot in Champaign, his community, since he was living here when he was younger. And so he gave us a lot of tips and tricks on like who to reach out to with resources, with city council, and getting Officer Cobb, getting in contact with him about safety and precautionary measures to take before we did the protest. And just on our part, you know, we had the donations and we went and bought walkie-talkies and t-shirts. And also when people would reach out to us about volunteering, we kind of had our intersections on our route. What we wanted to do, like our main focus was not to just march in the street. It was to march, but then also educate the people that were there about what was going on. And so that's why we had to set intersections. And then there, the community kind of took in, hey, would you want us to stop at these intersections to pass out waters and stuff like that? And it was kind of just like a whole coming together as everyone just wanted to help in whatever way they could. But definitely Justin Hendricks was a big help, and CC ARC as well as BCFR Drake. I'm not exactly sure to say his last name, but I don't want to butcher it, but his name is Drake. And they've just been helping us a lot with giving us what they have and their ideas and what they've been doing in the past and how we can kind of tweak it in our own way.
Okay, great, thanks. And yeah, so Drake is awesome. John said that. So John, can you tell us a little bit about your protest and how you went about organizing it?
Yeah, definitely. Naomi, your audio is echoing, just so you know.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. Awesome. So the whole reason that, the way that it was very weird, you know, setting this up. Like Naomi knows how it can be setting up a protest in like 2 days, you know. So like hearing you do that too, I was like, okay, we're not the only people just going like, hey, let's go, you know. And it's a very it's hard, you know, especially when you haven't really you know, done a protest and like put something like this together before, you know, you're learning as you go kind of thing. So I had to I was like, all right, so we're going to do this. Who can help me out? So I was messaging my friends and I was like, hey, I need a team. I need some people to help me out. And so as I kept getting more and more momentum, luckily, one of the groups in St. Joe that I didn't even know existed, which was SJO Onward, which Carol is, I believe, a founding member of. So they've been kind of like helping to guide me through this and helping to support me just kind of in different ways. But it was just hard, you know, like I had to have a meeting with the village. I had to talk to our mayor. I had to, you know, call the sheriff's department. Like it was just a lot of moving pieces that you don't really see. And then getting that all under my belt, and now, you know, doing that, it's just gotten better as we're moving forward. So it's very difficult, but at the same time, I knew that I wasn't going to do it right. You know, I knew it wasn't going to be 100% perfect. Like we're throwing together a protest in 2 days. There's no way that it's going to be absolutely flawless and it's going to be amazing. But the whole point was just doing it. You know, it's okay to do it and not do it right, because when you don't do it right, you can learn from your mistakes and you can keep learning and keep going. And that's kind of like the biggest mindset that I think I started to adopt as like I've been more, you know, community organizing, is don't be afraid to, you know, try just because you think you're not going to do it right. You know, you should try. And if you fail and people are telling you, hey, like that wasn't okay, or hey, this could have done better, don't get defensive about it. Learn, you know, learn and grow and keep going. So now that, you know, I'm getting more of these organizations like organizing like events under my belt, it's gotten a lot easier over time. So it gets easier, you know, just keep trying, keep doing all that stuff. So that's kind of the biggest thing that I learned from that.
Definitely scary though. I can definitely say that.
The scary part, you know, that's one of the questions, Naomi, I have you, and then we'll go back to John. One of the league members talks about what did you worry about with your peaceful protest that never happened?
Yeah, so Our whole plan behind our protest was, and also Paint the Pieces slogan is change the narrative. So a lot of the reason why I was so passionate about doing something here in Champaign was that I'm just very active with what's going on in general when it comes to Black issues and Black Lives Matter. I'm usually on it. And so with the George Floyd situation, it was just affecting me to a completely other level, just how everyone else was like, okay, that's it. I was up for 4 days straight, making sure I didn't miss anything. And then I saw the looting and the riot flyer for the marketplace thing. And I put out all like, this is fake, this is made from someone else, like please do not engage, there's a protest tomorrow. And as much as we could try to do that, you know, once the message was out there, it happened. But my whole point was that there are people been out, our whole point in Paint the Piece and mine as well was just that there are people protesting days before that happened, and there's protests planned for after it happened too. Use the peaceful protest to get your voice out there and not fit into the stereotype that they're trying to place onto you. And so we wanted to change the narrative about the youth, because a lot of what was happening was that video was getting played on a loop on the news. It was just always, you turn on the news and it was on. And it was like, okay, yeah, that happened, but that's not the only thing that is happening. So it was like, we have to do something to prove and to show people in the media that we are here and we're smart and we're intelligent and we're doing it the right way, as right as we can. Like John said, it's never gonna be perfect, but our intentions were pure. And so that was the biggest thing, was changing the narrative, keeping it peaceful, making sure everyone was aware of that, and using the youth really as the leaders for this, because it wasn't adults or people that were angry in a rage type of way. It was we're fed up and we want change and we want reform, and this is the way we know how to go about it.
Okay. So John, if you could maybe share with us what you worried about with your protests that didn't happen.
Yeah, definitely. So it was like Naomi said, like the juxtaposition between like the you know, the looting and rioting that was happening, and then you had those protests the next day. That was a huge protest. We blocked all of University and Vine completely. That entire intersection was just a huge intersection, you know, and we marched and kept going, and it was great. But, you know, so you had that juxtaposition of like something that was a little bit, you know, more violent, which a lot of people skew in a very negative way, and then the narrative becomes negative. And then you have like this very peaceful protest that was all about community. And, you know, when I was in there, like, I felt so safe. Like felt so safe, and I felt cared for. You know, we would stop to do moments of silence, and every single time, right when we stopped, people were like, do you need water? Do you need sunblock? Do you need hand sanitizer? Do you need a mask? You know, people are turning to each other and saying, hey, we got each other. Like you know, so I was a little bit scared because I didn't want that the events that unfolded that previous Sunday to, you know, spur people to think that, you know, they needed to go out and defend their communities and, you know, do this, that, and the other. And another thing that was kind of scary about, you know, holding our protest was that a couple nights before, there was this rumor going around that Antifa was being bussed out to rural communities from Chicago to go and loot and riot in all their towns, which is ridiculous. So so this was going around and all this was happening, and I was like, okay, what? Okay, all right. Well, they're gonna loot the IGA? Like, I don't understand. So so that was happening, and I knew the narrative that was being formed in people's heads in my community, you know, that they were afraid of things that might be occurring, and that they might have to go out and defend themselves, and defend their community, which, you know, is a valid feeling, but not when it's, you know, formed from lies and rumors and just a place of fear of lack of understanding, you know. So that was kind of the biggest thing for me. You know, I thought that people would get violent, you know, for our protest. People were, you know, there were plenty of comments, you know, on our community page that was like, oh, you guys better keep it peaceful, or you know what's going to happen, you know, this, that, and the other. And it's like, y'all can try to intimidate us, it's still going to happen. Like, you know, so like I get where they were coming from, but at the same time, I was still scared, you know. It was what it was, but it didn't keep me from doing it.
No one likes agitation, but it seemed that the ones that were more scared of the agitation were the agitators in these circumstances, which was the scary part because we weren't trying to do anything wrong, but that just seemed to be what the premonition was from the beginning. So we had to do everything in our power, I feel like, me and John, to make sure that the message was clear of what we were doing.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. So to both of you, and you can, whoever wants to really kind of pick this up, what surprised you about the protest, and what did you learn from it? So we're on you, Naomi. You want to take that?
I can go. I feel like what really surprised me was the turnout. I mean, I know the movement was going and things were happening, but when we were coming down Prospect and we had turned the corner on Kirby and we stopped at our first intersection, people were just coming and coming and coming around that corner, and like it almost brought me to tears, like, because I was just never in a million years, like for my majority of my life, I was stuck in a little room and over by Savoy playing soccer, and I never would have thought that the entire Champaign community would come out and care for each other. Just like John said, everywhere people were, do you need water? Do you need sunscreen? Do you need food? Do you need this? Like it was completely, everyone was taken care of. We were always on the walkie-talkies, everyone okay? I feel like that's what surprised me most. It's sad that that's what surprised me, but honestly, it was just such a beautiful thing that I was not expecting to happen at all. Like the one that had happened before definitely was beautiful in its own sense, but I feel like with the organizing that happened with our protest, everyone kind of had a role with what they were doing, and it just flowed a lot better in that way. And then what was your second question?
What did you learn from it? Like, what are you taking away? You know,
A lot of what I'm learning from this experience is just voicing my opinions, and like Don said, like realizing that not everything you do is going to be right, and it's not going to be perfect, especially when it comes to these type of things that people are very passionate about their opinions and their ideas, and you're always going to have some sort of clashing something happen with anything. And that's kind of been my main thing is moving forward, like keeping an idea on the bigger picture and why we're doing this in the first place. Because I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot to put on your shoulders, and it's just a lot to process, even as a civilian, as a regular person going on your phone. Like it's constant. And so being in it and knowing that your voice matters and knowing that you do have some sort of an impact, it is stressful. But keeping the idea of this is not for me. There's people dying right now as we speak, probably due to the things that we're fighting for, and that's kind of the what pushes me to keep going through all of this. Because like I said, I have siblings that are going to grow up, and I don't want them to be fighting for this the way I have to right now. Because I didn't think I would have to. When I was their age, I was like, oh, you know, it's all okay. And then you get to high school, and it's like, no, it's not okay. So I just wanted to make sure that like what I'm learning from all this stuff is just keeping in mind the people that come after us. It's not necessarily for us right now, but it's more so for the people that are coming afterwards.
and then Jonathan, respond to that. You know, what did you learn, or what surprised you, and then what did you learn about that?
Yeah, I think what kind of surprised me the most, it's the same thing as Naomi said, the turnout. You know, our small little town, I expected maybe 50 people, maybe, and we had close to about 200 come out and show their support. And I think a thing that also surprised me the most is a lot of, you know, community members that I had previously thought would not go to an event like this at all. Like they were coming to these things and they were messaging me and saying, what can you tell me about this and this and this? And I was like, holy cow, like you got like character development, you know? So like, so I was just so surprised, but like also so glad that people, you know, wanted to keep learning and wanted to be involved. And, you know, it kind of was, that's also something that I learned, you know, you can't be so quick to judge others, you know, you can't be so quick to say, oh, well, that person said one racist thing really long time ago, or, you know, said one thing wrong and then just write them off. You have to keep learning from that. And if they're willing to learn from it, that's when I can, you know, we can help guide them in a way that is constructive. And you don't want to, you know, say it in a condescending manner. You don't want to say it, you know, you want to help teach them. But at the same time, you know, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So, you know, we can provide them with resources, but we can't make them read them. So you know, the thing that kind of surprised me the most was that people were willing to take the next step and start learning and reading, you know, texts like So You Want to Talk About Race and White Fragility, and, you know, all of these different media that has been available for a very long time. And now people are actually starting to take the next step. And I thought that was so awesome. So yeah, the biggest thing I'm learning is just not to be so quick to judge others, and start to, you know, hear where they're coming from, and help guide them at the place that they're at, not just expect them to be super far ahead and at the same space as you. So yeah.
I think it would be, now that you kind of talks about all of this for, and I'll kind of leave it up to both either you or Naomi to take this, is like, you know, what has your involvement with this, how's it changed kind of your future plans? And then really, what are your future plans? Like folks have sort of alluded to, these are the things I'm fighting for, things that I want to see change, but what action steps are you taking? And really kind of in your mind, sort of what's, I mean, this is all sort of fluid, but what's sort of your end goal of things that you'd like to see accomplished in your community that you feel like you could impact?
Yeah, I'll talk about that. Yeah, so with Pain to Peace, now that we're kind of getting our foundations and our bearings and everything down, like I said, we're a very strong group of, like, I just graduated high school, but they're still in high school. And so a lot of it for me was, even because I've had Pain to Peace like on my own since I was a junior, and now that I'm graduating, it's something that I'm kind of looking to graduate from as well at some point and keep it for the youth. So a lot of what we're trying to focus on is getting the youth involved and engaged in our community as well, because I mean, the main thing you hear about Champaign when it comes to the kids is there's nothing to do. there's nothing to do. I mean, I had skate land maybe in Solon when I was younger, but that was it. So having activities that are like other than sports, you know, but where they can use their voices and their opinions and things that they're passionate about in other ways, to help them and guide them through what's going on in their own personal lives. Because especially with all this, like I said, it's constant, and that it's trauma. You feel me? Like we're just constantly processing trauma, and they have to have an outlet for that. I feel like that's one of the main problems with our generations, is that we don't have an outlet, and that's why we're so pent up. But as well, definitely changes in our education system, things that we want that need to be taught in our schools that aren't being taught right now, and resources as well, like with counselors, more therapists and people to help kids instead of punishing them, and lessen that school to prison pipeline. Just things that involve the youth and that will help put a block in the road before they become an adult and their mistakes are held against them forever. You know what I'm saying? Just ways that kids can give themselves outlets and express themselves more, I think, is our biggest goal for Pain to Peace. So, yeah.
So John, if you want to respond to that as well.
Yeah, so SGO Onward's starting to get a lot more traction with all of this happening, and so I've been working a lot with CU Surge, which is Standing Up for Racial Justice chapter in Champaign-Urbana, and they've been helping a lot of helping us, like, you know, set up our foundations of, you know, organizing and things like that. So we're starting to get all of our you know, future plans like in line now, and so like the things that we've started to really, you know, embody are, you know, things that people of color in our community are telling us. They are telling us, you know, things that they want to happen. And so us as, you know, our whole SGO Onward is essentially white people. Like it's it's St. Joseph, Illinois, you know, there's a lot of white people here. So, you know, we're trying to take that information and amplify their voice, you know, through our privilege. We want to be able to use that to their advantage, not to ours. So our biggest thing, you know, as it stands right now is like the same things that Naomi is saying, you know, it's changes in the curriculum. You know, we want anti-racist curriculum in our schools, we want Black history to be at the forefront. It shouldn't ever be an elective, you know. And recently, the SAO English department has started to take steps towards that. They are, you know, taking steps. They're, you know, asking for donations for books that they can, you know, put into their curriculum. And so the teachers are starting to get that momentum too. So we think we already, you know, that's kind of like a foot in the door, you know. And so, and it's, but the thing is, it shouldn't only be the English department. It should be the history department. It should be, you know, pretty much every single subject, maybe like not math. I don't know. I don't know how you would include that, but, you know, even, you know, talking about, you know, just different curricula, you know, like Naomi said, like that's something really big. And something Naomi also said was counselors. We want more counselors in our schools. I actually researched, I looked at St. Joseph High School's, St. Joseph Ogden's High School's budgets for the past 5 years, which is exhausting. You will see spreadsheets everywhere you go after you look at that. But there has been $0 allocated to psychological services for students for the past 5 years at least. Those were the only ones that I could see, $0. So it's being lumped into counselors, which we have a guidance counselor, and I think we have like one more counselor, and that's it. Like it's not, there aren't those support systems, you know, for people that want to go to these people for help. And I can tell you from my personal experience that those counseling things that they have set up are not, you know, are not effective at all, because it's a small town.
I can tell you guys, so we do it by last name. They go by last name. So it's like A through E, you get a counselor, E through.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just.
Yeah. So, like it's not the best, you know, like, because it's, in our instance, it's a small town, so everybody knows everybody. So the counselor that I had to go talk to whenever I was having issues knew all my bullies parents, knew all, you know, so like you're sitting there like, yes, I could sit here and tell you all, you know, but, you know, so I could sit here and say my experience all day, but it doesn't really matter because that's not really, you know, what we're talking about. But it just shows that our system in our school isn't good enough. You know, it needs to be improved. We need more counselors. We need more psychologists. We need people who are qualified to deal with these issues and traumas that our students are going through, you know, so we need more people like that. And, so we were moving toward that, and that's kind of something we want to see in the future, you know, more counselors in our schools, and you know, changing the curriculum. That's like the biggest thing. But at the same time, we also want, you know, our communities to be able to be educated. So we're starting to get some momentum started for community discussion groups and book clubs and, you know, movie watching parties and discussions following that, you know, getting community education at the forefront, you know, education, like that's the biggest, you know, overarching thing. Yeah. Naomi's just like, period. So yeah, so that's kind of the biggest thing is that we want to see in the future is education.
Okay. And so I think, you know, you both talked about, you know, obviously participating in these events and educating ourselves, but are there other things that we have all these folks on the call that you that we could do as community members to support you and others, other than the things you've already kind of outlined for us, you know, working in the school system? Are there other things in particular?
I think the main thing, I'm not exactly sure what all of your professions are, but I'm sure, like, I think it comes to personal things, and like especially with, I feel like the Black youth and with kids of color and people of color in general, our main thing is just like we are people, you know, and like that's, we want to be treated as such. And I feel like that goes for any demographic that has been discriminated against. And like with just my time, I know we've gone through the gay rights, the, you know, the women's rights, and all these different things. And I feel like we need to share our stories more and just listening. I feel like that's a big thing with just in your groups and in your lives in general. Because I know we're talking a lot about community and how you can help in your community. But if you start at home, I think that's the biggest thing. Walking around
and the regular. One of each would be nice.
I think somebody else is talking, so it needs to mute. So not sure. I can't see.
But for sure, definitely just listening and being aware of what's going on now that it's out there that yes, prejudice is still a very prevalent thing, and things definitely need to be changing. Like being an advocate in more than one way, not just showing up for the community and showing up to educate yourself, but just like with bullying, like when you see something that's wrong, standing up for it, and it's a thing that needs to happen 10 times more than it's happening right now. Like we can't just say no to racism. We have to be anti-racist in everything that we do. And I feel like that's the first step, definitely, is just making sure you're reevaluating the problem and how you are a part of it. Because if it's been going on for this long, obviously everyone's contributing to it in some way. And so we have to figure out what the problem is and how we can stop being a part of it and how we can stop it, period. I feel like that's one of the biggest things. I'm sure some of you may be educators or be around children and stuff like that. And I just know as a Black girl going to school, it was a lot of Black voices are silenced a lot, and it's just because we are taught not to speak up, and we feel like we're silenced. So it's just giving us the outlets and the availability to do so, and the resources is a big thing. So.
No, I think I'm sort of spurred on by your comments about that there was nowhere for youth to go after school. So that's been something that I've thought about as well. So I have to process. John, is there anything you'd like to add? And we'll see what questions maybe the league members. I do have one last question, but John, would you like to add right now?
Yeah, definitely. Oh, Naomi, you're echoing again. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think Naomi touched on it, doing the little things in your everyday life, in your profession, in your family, in your homes, having these difficult conversations with your kids and with your grandchildren and with everybody, having these conversations and not just steering away from them because it's uncomfortable. Getting these conversations going and starting to talk to them about these things, because it's the world we live in. You can't just shelter people from reality all of their lives, and the earlier that we start to get these kids to talk about it, the more educated they're going to be on the subject and the more they're going to be willing to talk about it in the future. So I guess, Naomi touched on it very articulately, and I don't want to go on and on and on. So I think that what she said was definitely 100% true. Being anti-racist in every single facet of your life. I know it'll be exhausting. I get it. I'm white. Like, it took me a long time to start to keep going and keep going, and I know how it feels. But at the same time, people of color have been fighting the fight their whole lives, and they don't get to just remove themselves from the conversation. They just don't get to do that. So we have that privilege to do that. So try to motivate yourself to keep going and keep fighting, even though it might be exhausting. Yes, you can take a break for your mental health. That's fine. Like, it's okay to take a break, but you need to do that with the full intention of coming back stronger, coming back at your 100%, so you can give people more.
Okay, thanks. So a question really from the group is, I've talked with both you and Naomi about the fact that the League of Women Voters is one of our main missions is to register folks to vote and to actually, encourage individuals to go vote. And I think someone mentioned, you can't, we can't tell people what to do. And one of the things that we know is that other young people encouraging their friends to register to vote and to go ahead and vote is very empowering right now. And so we would like to hear from you about what do you think motivates folks to kind of attend your protests, and how can we get them to register to vote and be part of that political process? If you have any thoughts or ideas about that, and Naomi, if you want to jump in to start with, that'd be great.
Yeah, so we talk about voting a lot at our protests. That's been one of the main things since I've been going out to these protests, is voting, because a lot of the main problems in the Black communities is because we are targeted by police at higher rates, and the school to prison pipeline, a lot of our people are affected by their, not their status, but just being able to vote with things that happen in their criminal history and stuff like that. So a lot of ways to get around that is like the census and stuff like that. So we just try to make them aware in the most ways possible of how you can go about it, because voting is the main thing. That's how we get people out of office and get the people we want in office to fight for us. So however we can help you guys is really our question to you, like, because we're on the same boat. And so it's like, if you have flyers, if you have links, if you need help with making social media stuff, we're completely there for it, because that's what the youth needs. Is they need to realize that politics is not scary, because that's kind of how I thought about it too, was that that's not me, that's old people, if you feel me, like I don't want to deal with that. But no, it's happening right now. I'm 18, I can vote this year, and it's important to me, so I know it's important to other people as well, and especially people that are coming out to our protest. So however we can help you, that's
well, we'll follow up with you about that. The other thing is, would you be even open to, as people gather for a protest, for folks to be there to pass out flyers, or is that not a? Okay, great.
Because we would either do it, or you can. It would be better if you could do it and spread your message
Yeah,
yourself. So.
yeah, you got plenty to do. Yeah, that's good to know. So, and then John, do you have anything else you'd like to add about that?
Yeah, sorry, my mind is just like blown away just by like how awesome this conversation has gone so far. I think the biggest thing, is encouraging people to go out and vote, and also, yes, your vote matters, and you matter, and it's important to look out for number one, a lot. But at the same time, you got to look out for your neighbor. You got to look out for, other people other than yourself sometimes. And I can tell you that every single time I have voted has not been for myself. It has been for other people. It has been for, making things equal for everybody. So I think also just shifting the narrative around why people vote. I think a lot of the time we get raised in this idea that you need to vote for the person that's going to look out for you. And it's like, yes, that's fine, but also there are a lot of other people that need your vote, that need your help to get some things going. And so, you can vote for yourself, and that's fine, and that's completely valid. You might not believe with 100% of the way that, our politics are set up, because it's so, left or right. It's like there's only two parties, and they're not going to fully represent everything that you think. And, that's fine. Like, I get it. It's valid. But at the same time, I would encourage you to still think about, these things, and keep thinking about it until, and think about where that priority lands for you. Where do others' lives and well-being, where does that prioritize into your own life? So yeah, I think I answered that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, that's great. I looked on the chat, but I don't know, for Teresa and Carol, who are monitoring this a little bit more, are there questions from the audience, or does anyone want to raise their hands? And I'm on speaker view, not gallery. So if somebody if John and Naomi, we have a few minutes left to answer any questions the group might have, anyone in the group might have.
There is one question on chat. I will ask it now. How can the press get a handle on the people and the organizations involved in Black Lives Matter? I had a call last night from the press saying they would like to cover this Zoom call, but they don't know whom to contact. So it sounds like they're interested, the press is interested in knowing people to contact and organizations related to Black Lives Matter. Yes.
All right, yeah, so I know WCIA messages like Pain to Peace back and forth on Facebook sometimes. So I know they have our contact for sure. One of the news outlets does. But that's just a lot of talking, and organization-wise, I mean, I think that we have no problem with the media coming in, watching and representing this stuff, because this is what we want to be seen. So it's definitely just getting contact information out there and communication on both ends of how they can do that and how we can help them do that. So. Yeah,
I definitely agree with that. there was this professor who at my college that did a lot of activism in her community, and she's like, there's a big thing that some people don't think about is you need to get the press there, because they're not always going to know what's going on. So I think that this is a really, really great question, Barbara, bringing that up, the fact that reaching out to the media and the press isn't an egotistical thing. It isn't a, hey, look at me, I want to be on TV. It's getting the message out, spreading it through whatever media outlets we can get a hold of. So I think that's something that keeps getting overlooked, that I think that I definitely can work on myself. And I know it kind of gets pushed on the back burner because Naomi knows we're thinking about a bajillion different things other than the press. So, but that is something we need to, talk about. Who's a contact person? For me, myself, I think I would be the contact person. Yeah, Naomi's like, me. But really anybody in the group, can get a hold of a leadership person, and tell them about it. So, getting a hold of any person that's in that. I know a lot of other community leaders. Maggie Kinnaman is working in Mahomet as well, with Persisterhood, I think, which is another great group in Mahomet. Maggie Kinnaman's great. Melina Thompson is doing some great work in Mahomet, but also she's helping her mom with some things in Rantoul. Let me put that down as well. Paul Sabin is helping in Mahomet as well. But those are just a few of the people that I've been in contact with, because the CU Surge has been trying to get us to all talk to each other. So those are just a few people that you might be able
and there's another question that's come in, and Naomi, if you want to take it to start with. Undoubtedly you've been attacked personally for your activism, and how did you respond?
Attacked for what?
You've been attacked personally, possibly for your activism, and I think about how it's so social media really exacerbates that, because people can attack not in person, and it's can be so big. So how have you responded to that?
I'm gonna be completely honest. A lot of the reasons why Pain to Peace didn't work my junior year was because of that reason, before this stuff even got to a point where it was this powerful and nationwide. But I experienced, my whole high school experience was people not liking me for certain things I was doing. And so this was kind of the moment for it, was for me to be like, okay, I don't care. And I know that what I'm doing is for the right reason and for the right cause. And I feel like now it's everyone else waking up that you should feel a certain type of way if you don't know what's going on, and if you're not on the right side of history, if that makes sense. And so when I do get some of those messages, like before there wasn't a lot. I know with this upcoming protest we do have on Wednesday, the 8th in Mahomet, there has been a lot of, I don't want to say mean, but not very nice comments made about what's going on. And some of them are scary. I'm not going to lie to you, but I know that we're protected. Protesting in Illinois is legal. We have the right to be there. I know I have a right for my voice to be heard. And that's the main thing I think Black Lives Matter and just all of these organizations, what we're fighting for is that we, the people, have the right to do what we want and to be heard, especially in these situations when these politicians and these movements are affecting our futures. So I think when it comes down to it, it's really I could care less. It's a bigger picture. Like I said, it's more than one person. It's more than social media. It's more than an idea or a viewpoint that a group of people have. It's about people and humanity, and we need to do better. So.
Okay. John, you want to add anything about your experience?
I think that Naomi kind of touched on it. It's, approaching the hate with love, and I said that in our first protest. Anytime somebody shouts from their car, this, that, and the other, you just respond, I love you too. Have a great day. If they're going to be ignorant toward you, you just be lovingly ignorant back. You say, I love you. Have a great day. you go with grace, you know, have a good time, you know, like if they're going to be putting that kind of toward you, the best response is to just put up your hands and just be like, all right, you know, if you're going to be like that, that's totally fine. You know, like I'm not going to put the hate back toward you.
Right. Okay. Another question's come in, and while you're on, John, I'll just let you take it. Someone's curious about how the institutions, or I'll almost call them stakeholders, like the police, the mayor, and in your communities, responded to the request for the protest. Was there support, hesitation, ambivalence? Like what was the response? And I'll start with you, John, then we'll go to you, Naomi. Okay.
Yeah. So at first I thought that it was all really good. I had a sit-down conversation with our mayor about, you know, using the space and having the protest. And I knew it was completely legal, so more just kind of a formality, me being like, hey, this is happening kind of thing. But, you know, so I had that, and I thought it was a really great conversation. And in the sheriff's department was amazing. Like they were like on it. They were asking me like, where's it going to be? How many people are you expecting? Like, you know, they were seriously like very good about making sure that our right is being protected. And they kept saying that on the phone with me whenever I was talking to them. They were saying, yes, of course, we're glad that you guys are exercising your First Amendment right, and we're here to protect that. And I was like, okay, cool, great. You know, but, you know, so I had that meeting with our mayor, and I got the sheriff's department on board. And well, comes time for the protest, and our mayor shows up for the very beginning, and she hands me a handout with pretty much the complete opposite of what we're trying to accomplish. She wants me to hand these, you know, pamphlets out to our protest. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll hand these out. She turned around and I stuffed them in my backpack. You know, I wasn't about to do it because it wasn't, if it was, you know, approached with a very, you know, knowledgeable, open-minded, you know, thing, it would have been great. However, on the front page, there's just things that were just completely false. She said, you know, on the front, there is no evidence of widespread racial bias. And she said that, and I was like, there's no what? So I was like, you know what, that's, you know, it is what it is. But she showed up, handed me those handouts, and left. She didn't stay for our speakers. She didn't, you know, so there's still, to answer your question, there are people in our community that are heads of our community that have inherent racism in them, and they are kind of pushing back against these types of things. So yeah, just a long explanation.
Sure.
Yes, it is here.
Yep. And how about you, Naomi? What was your experience with it?
I think, I don't know, overall, I think it was pretty well. I know Cobb, me and him had been in communication just through the protest that had happened earlier. He also knows my dad, so it made it less scary in a way, but it was still terrifying. But definitely on the phone call, like I had my mentors behind me and other organizers who had been there to help me through that, and to make sure that, like John said, I wasn't asking, I was demanding, because it needed to be done and it was something that needed to happen. And I feel like everyone should be on board with it, because like I said, it's not a black or white, it's not a political, it's a humanity thing. And so, yeah, I think once the message was there, everyone kind of rallied around it. But just like John said, I have been on some city council meetings and stuff like that, and I know that there are some people who are in our higher jobs and positions that are aware of what's going on, and they believe in it and they are supporting it. But I haven't heard from everyone. I don't know exactly where players were, and we did call out a lot of people as well. So, but we are trying to make sure we're in every place where people are being spoken at, like at the Unit 4 things and just other moments where we can get what we said out, so they heard us. We know that you heard what we were saying, and now it's up to your response, whether it's good or bad, whether you care, whether you don't care. Then we can base that off of what we need to do next. So there are some that are still kind of on the fence for me, that I'm not sure if they're totally behind us or not.
Right. Yeah. It'll take time to figure that out. So we're really up at almost at the end of our hour. So I'm going to ask Tricia or the other committee members, or there are other things that we'd like to cover at all?
We can wrap this up. I have a few concluding remarks. So let's, if Naomi or John would like to make any kind of final.
Like the question they asked who to reach out to. I founded Pain to Peace, but the group that we came up with founded what Pain to Peace is now. And we are all co-leaders of the organization. And so if you need to reach out to anybody in Pain to Peace, it's not always just me, and I'll send that information to you guys. But there's Aeon Harris, Isabella Yerez, Maya Wells, Gutierrez, and Taylor Blackwell, and they are all high schoolers in our community that are the co-leaders and founders of Pain to Peace as well. So if you ever need something from one of us and I'm not available, so they are available, and they are just as where I am in Pain to Peace and the organizing and all of that stuff as well. So I wanted to let you guys just know that.
And that's there on your website. That's great.
They're all on the website. You can read about them. You can reach out to us. We have one main email. I'm usually the one responding to social media stuff, so that's why I'm usually on things like that. But definitely don't feel that you have to come to me for everything. We are all on the same wavelength and same position in our organization. So.
Anything else, John, from you?
Yeah, I would just, say the same thing. I'm not, I came into doing this thing with SEO Onward, and I'm not a founding member. I just came in hot and we started rolling. And so, people that are heads of this, organization are also on the same level. Carol, I'm sure, is very much so as passionate as I am about these things. And, there's a lot of other leaders in our, group that would be willing to have these conversations as well. So all of that, I had a link to our website. We just got a new website, which is really cute. And it's under the CU Search website. They gave us this little sub page. It's a work in progress. Pretty much it just has a sign up link right now and just our mission statement. But as we keep progressing and keep getting more established leadership positions, we'll put more contact information on there, things like that, so that's kind of my biggest thing too is, we're still growing and doing all this stuff. So yeah.
Well,
Okay.
Thanks both. Yeah, go ahead, Tricia.
I'd like to thank Rhonda and Carol for putting this together. It's been an extremely exciting discussion. And I'd like to thank John and Naomi for telling us we need to think about our own lives and the things that we do and how it fits in these systems that we're just really, as most of us as white people, beginning to see. And so it's a great start to keep this in the forefront of our minds. This is one of the things that we have to do individually, but also discussing in groups. And so thank you so much for that. I think it's a very powerful message, and we'll try and keep it up. And I wanted to say our next meeting is going to be an league office hours. It's July 19th. You'll be getting some Zoom notices. We'll be talking about some current events. It's a kind of like an update kind of thing. So you'll be seeing that. But more importantly, I want to say the league, the US League and its national convention passed a resolution for racial justice and urging the local leagues to make this a priority. And I think we're going to be working on that. But there are some things that we do that are working on this area already, and particularly registering and voting. And we're making a renewed effort to reach out to young people for registering. And for, this go around, the presidential election is motivation for most people to go out and vote. But there are other elections in which the local races are the focus. And, this is where we can make change happen at the local level. So we have to really work on encouraging people to vote in local elections. And so, and then one last thing, The League is pushing for adoption of the fair tax amendment, which would allow a progressive income tax in Illinois. And we need more money in education. And the only way to get this is to get the state on a better fiscal basis so they can begin to start picking up their obligation to fund education. And from K through 12 to university, community colleges, the state has really found that its fiscal condition is impacting that. And so our work on the fair tax amendment sounds removed, but it's one of those pieces that needs to be in place in order for these things to be improved in other areas. And so we're really making a push to get that, people voting on that this November. So with that, I guess we're done, and I really appreciate Naomi and John, and thanks a lot, and we'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Thank you. Yay.
Thank you. You guys are great.
Thanks, Naomi and John. Thanks so much. I'll be in touch with you.